Hello guys, I'm back with a new video which might stir up some controversy among Half-Life fans, given that by the title you already know that I'm going to fire some shots against Half-Life 2, arguably the most popular and beloved entry in the Half-Life franchise. Unfortunately, I truly believe that Half-Life 2 is a mediocre game, and I'll try to be as analytical as possible in my reasoning on why I believe Half-Life 2 is a 7.5 at best, at least gameplay-wise. Let's start by the basics. Half-Life 2 is an FPS, and to me, the two main pillars of good FPS gameplay are the presence of a satisfying gunplay, which can be achieved by either arming the player with a fun arsenal of weapons to pull the trigger with, or showcasing a pool of different enemies that are interesting to fight and mow down. Of course, a perfect FPS game would exhibit both qualities. Half-Life 2 unfortunately has neither of the two. Let's start by analyzing the weapons. In Half-Life 2 you have your standard pistol. The player can carry plenty of rounds for it, and the magazine size is 17, which is a decent number of bullets to lean on. I like both the graphic and sound design of the Half-Life 2 USP, however its major flaw lies in the fact that, compared to Half-Life 1, the USP is quite imprecise. This is immediately apparent from the moment you start shooting Combine's Metropolis from a distance in Root Canal. I find it quite frustrating that, no matter how well I aim, to score an headshot I need to pray to the RNG gods. If I'm playing on hard mode, I don't want to lose precious HP and armor just because I got unlucky. Unfortunately, this flaw is carried over to the next two main bullets-based weapons, the SMG and the Combine AR2. Let's briefly analyze the MP7 SMG, which is probably the weapon you will use the most throughout Gordon's journey to the Citadel, since you pretty much get an endless supply of ammo for it, and in addition to this, you can carry a decent number of magazines for it, 6 mags containing 45 bullets each, a feature that promotes the usage of this weapon. As I've hinted before, this weapon too is quite inaccurate, and it's very noticeable to the point that attempting to shoot down an enemy from the distance becomes a strenuous feat that will probably make you spray through one whole magazine. From the long range, it's absolutely useless, and you're better off sprinting around the room in and out of cover to get closer to the enemy. The way it sounds and feels is kinda weak compared to the 9mm assault rifle from Half-Life 1. And its design is quite anonymous and not exciting at all. The grenades it shoots also look like suppositories, and their impact sound resembles the thump of a fat man's belly diving in a pond of water. Time to move to the AR2, or the so-called pulse rifle. This piece of Combine technology is quite inaccurate too. It deals higher damage than the SMG, and thankfully shooting from it has a chunky feel to it. Yet, it's still not a viable weapon mid to long range. Again, you're better off praying the RNG gods when firing from a distance. Another issue I have with the pulse rifle is that you can only carry a measly amount of mags with you, only 3, including the one that is loaded in the chamber. I like its design, and the reloading animation is quite neat too. I feel like Entropy 01 did a great job in differentiating it from the SMG by increasing the mag size and bullets per minute, making it feel like a light machine gun. Another gameplay possibility could have been to implement either a semi-automatic switch to the gun or a 3-bullet burst. Then we have the shotgun, and much like Half-Life 1, it's inspired by this PAS-12, but in the second entry, this gun sounds kinda weak and flat, especially if compared to the first entry in the series. I must admit that it's a satisfying gun to blast Combine's mask and fasted zombie skulls with. Although I don't know why, instead of 8 rounds, you can only have 6 inside of the 8 that were present in Half-Life 1. Only 3 blasts from the secondary fire, and you gotta hide into cover to reload, like a little bitch. In Half-Life 1, you could carry a whopping amount of 125 shells, while in Half-Life 2 only 30. God only knows why. But the biggest problem with ammo capacity applies unfortunately to the guns that are the most fun to use, and the only viable ones for mid to long range combat, which neither the pistol nor the SMG or AR2 can handle. I'm talking about the crossbow and the revolver. Unfortunately, these weapons too have been nerfed, and now the player can only possess 12 revolver bullets compared to the 36 in Half-Life 1, and a meager amount of 10 crossbow bolts, especially when compared to the solid number of 50 in Half-Life 1. My interpretation to all these ammo nerfs is that perhaps Valve wanted the player to be more dynamic with its playstyle, and given the low number of mags you can carry for both the shotty and the pulse rifle, this choice obligates the player to scavenge for ammo, either by exploring the map or looting the enemies. Looting Combine carcasses is going to be the main source of ammo for the latter two weapons. However, this does not apply to the crossbow or revolver, since Combine's arsenal is only limited to the pistol, AR, SMG and shotgun. In addition to this, ammo boxes for the revolver and the crossbow are quite scarce. Perhaps they wanted the game to feel more like a survival horror type of game like Resident Evil, or maybe they wanted to incentivize the use of the gravity gun, which ammos consist in the items littered around the map. Either way, this design choice falls flat on its face in my opinion, because it makes the game less fun to play and much more monotonous, because you'll find yourself using the same guns over and over again, and Half-Life 2 weaponry is already limited to begin with. It's a real shame that ammo is so scarce, especially because impaling Combines with a crossbow is very fun, and the same applies to headshotting Combines with a revolver and watching them twirl on themselves. By these last words, you might deduce that I do enjoy using the crossbow and revolver, and I bet everyone does, because the crossbow looks quite cool, with its fiery bolts radiating heat from every pore, while the revolver is great because it feels very powerful to shoot, and it's actually stronger than Half-Life 1 revolver, dealing 75 damage instead of 40, although this is more noticeable in the deathmatch. It's time to announce the combat mechanic that saves Half-Life 2 Gunplay, the grenade throw. If you've ever jumped in Half-Life 2 Deathmatch, you're probably familiar with this mechanic. Basically, in Half-Life 2, you can drop your grenades, pick them up with the gravity gun, and throw them at full force towards your enemies. Obviously, you need to time their detonation so that they blow up right at your enemy's feet or face, or else you will either miss your target or experience a very humiliating defeat. Only noobs throw grenades with their hands in Half-Life 2. Real chads drop them to the ground unfazed by the potential danger of losing a leg because of wrong timing, and also grenade throws are probably the most effective tactic to approach mid to long range combat with. Now let's move to the most powerful weapon you have, and it's unfortunate that in Half-Life 2 the mightiest gun is your standard RPG, given that both Half-Life 1 and Opposing Force had plenty more cool guns to toy around with. My gripes with the RPG is that it's a highly situational weapon. It's not like your rocket launcher in Quake or Serious Lemme, and you have to whip it out whenever the game forces you to use it, in sections where it's strictly required, such as when gunships or striders must be taken care of. In these sections, the game fills you with rocket ammos, in others not so much. I mean, it's not as if you can carry a lot of those rockets anyways, just 3. In Half-Life you get 5, in Quake a whopping 100. 3 rockets signifies that you will forget the RPG exists until you are required to use it. Moreover, I find fighting striders and gunship a very tedious and boring experience. Gunships in particular are very annoying to deal with since they have flares that make your rockets go astray. All you do in these sections is hide from their same pulse rifle burst, which both enemies share, peek out to shoot a rocket, hide again behind cover while reloading, and repeat. These 2 types of enemies are also boring to tackle because they shoot with the same type of projectiles, the pulse rifle one. These moments are plain, boring and not fun at all. In Half-Life 1 you had many more options aside from the rocket launcher to kill helicopters or tanks alike. Seriously, I despise every section involving lots of striders and gunships, so yeah, Highway 17 and Fall of Freeman are a big no for me. It's a shame that a sequel, instead of expanding on the previous features of its predecessor, has cut them down in an unenjoyable way. I truly would have loved to see the TOW cannon detached from that dumb scout car in Highway 17. Or I would have been okay with holding an Eagle gun to disintegrate Combine suite. Even the Spore launcher from Opposing Force would have been great. So yeah, the lack of weapon variety is the first main reason I don't enjoy Half-Life 2 as much as Half-Life 1, and it represents a big downgrade from its predecessor. Another huge problem about Half-Life 2 gunplay is that enemies are kind of unresponsive to the bullets you pierce them with. You can unload 30 bullets of SMG on them, and neither alien nor Combine enemies will bat an eye or flinch at your shots. They will keep on chasing you like headless chickens or stand still while continuing to shoot at you from the distance. This makes fights both awkward and not really satisfying. The AI, moreover, definitely represents a downgrade from the HSU soldiers in Half-Life 1. Just look at how the Combines stand still even though I've just thrown a beeping grenade at their feet. The sound cue the Combines emit when they die remains iconic too. Another aspect about Half-Life 2 gameplay I don't like is the fact that getting hit by an enemy makes your aim flinch, just like it happens in Counter-Strike 1.6 if you don't have a Kevlar. It makes aiming from a distance quite frustrating, making you waste precious revolver and crossbow ammo. Another aspect is that Half-Life 2 has got ragdolls but no gibs. Am I the only one who would trade ragdolls for gibs at any time of the day? Speaking about ragdolls, I must now mention the number 1 weapon that capitalizes on the great source physics, the supercharged version of the gravity gun. The problem with this upgraded version of the gravity gun is that it's quite a cheap gun to use. In the Citadel level, all you have to do is spam either right mouse button or left mouse button to kill your enemies. It's a cool concept, but I think it has been implemented in a very lazy way. Last but not least, I have to give credits to the way weapons sway when you frantically move your mouse around. In my opinion, it looks great and it's not intrusive at all. It's a lovely little aspect, but of course, it does not make up for all the lacking aspects in Half-Life 2 gunplay. Time to talk about the movement in Half-Life 2 and what a downgrade it is compared to Half-Life 1. Gordon Freeman in the first entry of the series could jump much higher and cover longer distances with his jumps. Okay, I get it. 20 years have passed and after all this time, Gordon's joints have probably grown weaker after all that platforming back in Zen. Also, the 20 years spent sleeping probably made him lose all the muscle mass he had in his quads or calves. Seriously, 27-year-old Gordon Freeman in Black Mesa could rival the best Olympic long jumper out there. Jokes aside, bunny hopping is one key aspect in Half-Life 1 and one reason I and other Half-Life 1 fans enjoy the first title so much. All of this is completely gone in Half-Life 2, because in addition to not being able to jump further than 1 meter in front of you, you also walk at a considerably lower speed. This is when the sprint mechanic comes into play. Sprinting obviously allows the player to run, perhaps at a speed that's similar to Half-Life 1 if not greater. However, it depletes your stamina, so you can only sprint for a certain time frame. I find the sprinting mechanic completely unnecessary. It doesn't add a single layer of depth to the gameplay, and it just becomes an extra button you will have to press if you need to traverse through a level or run in and out of combat. It's utter bullshit, and I just can't wrap my head around this decision by Valve. Next, I will give a brief overview and my issues with Half-Life 2 enemy roster. Since I've already made a video, a very rough video on this topic, I'm gonna tackle it in a superficial way. My main criticism against Half-Life 2 is that the enemy pool has considerably shrinked when compared to Half-Life 1 and Opposing Force. Also, it baffles me that the enemies Valve decide to include are the least interesting ones. In fact, Half-Life 2 presents an abundance of zombies and headcrabs, and even newly introduced types of headcrabs and zombies, and the fast zombie is pretty cool though. But there is no trace of much cooler alien enemies, such as the bull squid, the vortigons or alien grunts. Even Ray 6 from Opposing Force was pretty good, sporting a ton of fun enemies to fight against, such as the pit drones, the shock trooper, but of course, these are nowhere to be found. Hell, the game even teases you at the start during the G-Man speech with an ichthyosaur trying to devour your face. But even though there are plenty of water areas in Half-Life 2, there are no ichthyosaurs to scare you while you're peacefully swimming. In addition to this, Half-Life 2 completely lacks medium to high HP enemies. I consider the Combines to be medium HP enemies, and I would have liked to face more sturdier foes. As an example, Half-Life 1 has got the Alien Grunts, which has roughly 45 more HP than the HEQ Soldier. Gunships and Striders, which are the most tanky enemy in Half-Life 2, don't count, because there's only one way to dispatch them with the rocket launcher, and they're more of a gimmick enemy than an actual enemy. During the majority of fights, you're either dispatching small-sized enemies like the headcrabs or Antillions, which are overall not so satisfying to eliminate, or fighting groups of Combines, which are okay enemies to fight, but they kind of all look and feel the same. Sure, there are different types of Combines, ranging from the most basic Metropolis up to the elite guards, the one dressed in a white uniform as if they're going to a gala night. But to me, the Combine's outfit could change as many times as Valve wanted to, they're still going to feel all the same. I'm pretty sure that no Half-Life 2 player, once he encounters a new type of Combines, will be filled with wonder and amazement and actually get excited to face this supposedly new type of foe. I've caught a glimpse of the Alyx once and they look cool, but I haven't played Alyx unfortunately. The biggest problem with Half-Life 2 gameplay is that after having met the first Combine soldiers, shot down the first gunship, messed around with the gravity gun, and impaled a soldier or two with the crossbow or revolver, the player has basically experienced all that Half-Life 2 has to offer gameplay-wise. Half-Life 1 instead kept the player on their toes by introducing new weapons and gameplay mechanics up until the very end of your Black Mesa escape with the Egon gun in Lambda Core, which is the section before you go on Xen, or the TOW cannon waiting for you way after the first half of the game, in questionable ethics. Now, I bet some Half-Life 2 fanboys are going to be pissed by this gameplay review, but I do believe that this sequel represents not just a gameplay downgrade from the first, but also a detachment that is a bit too big from the original storyline and settings. But I may criticize Half-Life 2 plot and levels design in another video. So stay tuned and goodbye boys, and like and subscribe.